Now we take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Following a public backlash over the inclusion of people convicted of serious crimes, President Bola Tinubu has reviewed the controversial list of 175 convicts earlier approved for presidential pardon. A statement says the president signed new instruments of clemency, removing offenders convicted of kidnapping, drug trafficking, human trafficking, fraud, and unlawful possession of firearms. It adds that others on the old list will now have their sentences commuted instead. Arise correspondent Godfrey Eshemoge has details.
The reviewed lists show that the number of beneficiaries drops from 175 to 120. Among the most notable names is that of Miriam Sanda, who was handed a death sentence for killing her husband in 2017. The government revoked the pardon earlier granted to her, changing it to 12 years in prison. 4 others had their death sentences commuted to life in prison, while 15 others were pardoned outright. The Tinubu administration's review of the presidential pardon lists means that convicts of serious crimes like kidnapping, drug trafficking, human trafficking, fraud, and illegal arms possession will no longer benefit from clemency. This may entail the government taking a tougher stance on insecurity. The decision also reflects President Tinubu's effort to distance his administration from perceptions of leniency towards corruption, insecurity, and organized crime. This balances the constitutional power of mercy with the need for accountability in serious offenses. The initial pardon list had sparked public outrage, but legal analysts say the review shows sensitivity to victims of crime and could help rebuild the trust in the justice system. By revisiting the list after public backlash, the Tinubu administration seems to have set a precedent that clemency decisions can be revisited in the interest of justice and security. Godfrey Eshemoge, Arise News.
Thank you, Godfrey. Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has identified inadequate resources as major challenges in the military's fight against insurgents and other criminal elements. Oluyede, who disclosed this during the screening and confirmation of newly appointed service chiefs by the Senate on Wednesday, demanded greater respect for soldiers, reminding all that it takes something special, almost a touch of madness, to be a soldier. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye tells us more.
The top military brass led by the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, walked into the hallowed chamber of the Senate at exactly 12:40 p.m. and were quickly put through the crucible. Oluyede takes the forefront, telling lawmakers that the military would require more resources, including a capacity to locally produce weapons to prosecute the wars and battles facing the country.
We all know that the resources are not enough. The enablers are not enough. So it makes it very difficult to get everything required to prosecute the war against terrorism, banditry, and other sundry crimes in Nigeria.
Perhaps even more profound is his bond and love for his soldiers, who he said deserve to be respected and treated better. He reminded everyone that it takes a lot, almost a touch of madness, to be a soldier.
What do I mean by this? For a right-thinking fellow, when there is danger, you are expected to retreat. But for a soldier, you are expected to go forward and face that challenge.
Having been previously confirmed as Chief of Army Staff just last December, Senate exempted Oluyede from the barrage of questions from senators to the remaining service chiefs.
What immediate action do you intend to take in addressing acts of terrorism, insurgency, and banditry bedeviling the country, having regard to your experience in the various theaters of war?
I totally agree with the Chief of Army Staff nominee's opinion. De-radicalizing the repentant criminals is a good way forward, but what of the moral burden?
The toughest words came from the Chief of Air Staff, Vice Marshal Sunday Aneke, who told lawmakers that his battalion will fight professionally and will be deadly in the process. He, however, raised concerns about funding, pointing out that a missile cost as much as $100,000.
And you fire these things every day. So it is not a business for the chicken-minded. The armed forces is that part of government which you must spend money and hope not to use. If you do not have it, you are a chicken waiting for the hawk to be carried.
The Air Force Chief rested the controversy surrounding the A-29 Super Tucano fighter jets procured by Nigeria, when he confirmed that the jet fighters are flying and fighting. Senate subsequently went behind closed doors to deliberate more on sensitive issues of military tactics and strategies. And after 4 hours of screening, Senate confirmed the Chief of Defense Staff and the service chiefs.
To our surprise, in spite of the fact that they are here for the armed forces, they went further to say that they want to urge the National Assembly to also protect the police forces.
With the confirmation by the Senate, the new service chiefs are expected to be decorated shortly by President Bola Tinubu, marking the beginning of a significant change of pattern in the Nigerian military hierarchy. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
Thank you, Omar. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC, yesterday announced that it had begun a detailed review of Nigeria's 3 petroleum refineries with a view to bringing them back online. In a post on his verified personal X handle last night, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the National Oil Company, Bayo Ujulari, stated that one of the options being explored by the NNPC is to search for technical equity partners to high-grade or repurpose the facilities. In spite of spending about $3 billion on revamping the refineries, only the 60,000 barrels per day portion of the facility worked skeletally for just a few months before packing up. The Warri Refinery remained comatose weeks after it was gleefully announced to have returned to production, while the Kaduna facility never took off at all. Now, in education, the federal government has released 2.3 billion naira representing batch 8 salary and promotion arrears to universities across the country. The disbursements processed through the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation is meant to clear inherited backlogs and enhance the welfare of academic and non-academic staff in the tertiary education sector. The Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa, disclosed this while providing updates of ongoing engagements with ASU and other tertiary institution unions. He further disclosed that the federal government, through the Ministry of Finance and the Office of the Accountant General, is finalizing the release of third-party non-statutory deductions and pension remittances expected to be completed in the coming days. And now to some good news. For the first time, This Day newspaper has been listed among the top 50 brands in Nigeria as released in the 2025 edition of the annual Top 50 Brands Nigeria report. The recognition marks a major milestone for the media organization, which joins other leading corporate brands celebrated for excellence, consistency, and consumer trust. Speaking during the formal presentation of the award certificate to This Day at the newspaper's corporate office yesterday, the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder, Top 50 Brands Nigeria, Taiwo Oluboyede, said the ranking was based on a scientific model known as Brand Strength Measurement, BSM, a composite evaluation system that assesses brands' popularity, consumer sentiment, online engagement, and nationwide presence. Congratulations are in order. This Day, our sister publication, congratulations to you, and of course, the editor-in-chief of This Day newspaper, Prince Unduka Obaigbena, the Duke. Rufai, your take on these stories this morning. Good news with ASU, the update on ASU. Finally, Mr. Bayo Ojulari is addressing the issue around the state of the refineries and what we should expect. And then going on to the stories, of course, around the service chiefs and the pardon list. Your take on these stories.
Okay. First, the pardon list. Yes, some people have posted the argument that it shows that government listen. The opposition said it shows shame, not wisdom. The question we should ask, those people that have first supported the pardon by the president, can you see how funny you look today in your arguments? Because we said these things. Look at the case of Miriam Sanda and the killing. A lot of people argue that Miriam Sanda was on that list, but a man that attacked a bandit back in return in self-defense was not put on that list. Probably, I think his name is Sunday Jackson, if my memory serves me right. So when you look at it, you look at how skewed it was. You can see the end to all the funny press conferences that were held. And the father of the boy that was killed was saying, we forgive you and let it go. Thank God the blood of that man that was killed spoke. And a lot of Nigerians came up to speak. Because we won't allow this to continue in our country. I'm also happy that the president has made some reforms, that this review committee of pardons will now sit in the office of the AGF. But I think we should expand the scope of this. Let's also bring people, ordinary people, people from different, interest groups in the country to be part of this process. But most importantly this morning, those that perpetrated this heinous crime against Nigeria, those that made this government look like a joke, because correct me if I'm wrong, a pardon reversal is a shocking one for Nigeria.
A number of people have debated that.
So those that made this government look like a joke, those that padded the pardon list, we must see their names and we must see sanctions meted out. If we don't have accountability, we can't build a society. The problem with Nigeria is we are trying to build a society without accountability. It will not work. Like somebody will say, if he didn't day, he didn't day. If accountability no day, Nigeria cannot day. So please, Attorney General, we'd like to see the names of those people. And people involved in that committee, heads must roll. NMPC, what money did they want again? To fleece Nigerians like they've been fleecing Nigerians. But we told them that those refineries were not going to work. We told them. But they went ahead. Just like the way they deceived Yaradua. They went ahead, they've deceived Buhari, and now they want to deceive us again. They want technical partners. Oh, yes. Like be Itano, like they will say, like the ones you people had yesterday. You will have just allowed that, Yaradua, Babasanjo has sold this refinery to the consortium. You will have just allowed that consortium to continue. But you deceived Yaradua, and now it has shown that Babasanjo is correct on this matter. They've been collecting money on this refinery. It's not worked. Why don't we just sell it off? When Atiku Abubakar said this, he said he was opposition and wanted to sell it to his cronies. But over 350 billion we've lost in 6 months on the Port Harcourt refinery. Some reports were saying that recently. Because we keep funding the staff there. We keep funding the inefficiencies of this refinery. While Dangote has shown us that it can work. Like I said before, remove your hand from the ogbono soup that is not drawing. Go and put water on fire for okra that will draw. Invest in Dangote refinery. The federal government should exit this refinery business because it's shown you can't run it effectively. If you could run it effectively, the refineries would not go moribund. If you have a private sector that can run it with accountability, increase your equity in Dangote refinery. At first, Ojulari was asked for 60 billion. We can make it work. You can make it work how? Is that not the same way Mele Kyari said they will make it work? Did it work? Did it work? Didn't they use everything to justify? Didn't they get protesters to protest that the refinery is working, that TV stations are the problem? The next point, as regards the federal government, when they do well, I will commend them. On this ASU matter, yes, it's a right step in the right direction, but it's not good enough. 2.3 billion, yes, to be able to add to the arrears and the demands while they talk to ASU. But all the things that they need to fulfill, they must be able to fulfill them, pure and simple. We must go one step further. And I must commend this government, because in terms of responding to the plight of ASU and even other sectoral response, we've seen some good strides on this government. In fact, just like the pension thing I was talking about, when they said they had cleared it, I went to make my results. They said not entirely, but this government has shown a great level of response. So we commend them as regards all of that. I yield the floor on this story. I wanted to talk about the new service chief, but I yield the floor.
All right, Dr. Bati.
Okay, congratulations to this day on the recognition. It's good for the brand. It's also a source of encouragement for the staff, the editors, of this day newspaper. And I think, it's been celebrated deservedly, justifiably. Now, to go quickly to NNPC. NNPC cumulatively has spent, in one account, $3 billion. In another account, a total of $18 billion. Some people put the figure even higher than that, to rehabilitate the refineries in Kaduna, Warri, and Port Harcourt. The one in Port Harcourt, they said they did a technical completion. Now, it produced about 60,000 barrels per day for a few weeks, and then it collapsed. The one in Warri never worked at all, money down the drain. The one in Kaduna never worked at all, money down the drain. And while they were doing that monkey business with the refineries and wasting taxpayers' money, a private investor, Aliko Dangote, came up and spent $20 billion to deliver the largest single-train refinery in the world. But the Nigerian government was wasting almost or more than the same amount, and they could not produce anything. Now, we have a new GMD of NNPCL, Engineer Bayo Ojulari, and he doesn't seem to have, clarity in terms of what he wants to do. First, when he got there, he said, we're going to revive the refineries. Secondly, he came and said, we're going to look for, a way to revive, to sell off the refineries. Then he has changed his mind now. He says they are looking for technical equity partners. Look, I've argued before on this desk that the best thing that they can do is to sell those 3 refineries as scrap and let the private sector take over. If you sell to the private sector, you will even deepen competition in the oil and gas business. Dangote is already there. There are other players, Renaissance Energy and others. You can deepen competition for the benefit of the Nigerian people. Particularly now that they are saying they are going to collect a fuel tax to the rate of about 100 naira per liter or so, in Lagos. It may be different in other parts of the country, which means that, in fact, the pump price of fuel will go up. If there is competition, it will bring down prices. And when Alhaji Aliko Dangote was responding to Pengasan, Nupeng, other people complaining about Dangote refinery operations, he said, look, the more the merrier. Let government encourage other competitors so that there will be no complaint about monopoly. There is one report that I read, despite the efforts of the Dangote refinery, we're still importing fuel. And so if you have refineries that are working, then of course maybe the burden on the average consumer will be less. However, they say they are looking for equity partners. You never know what they will do at the end of the day. Tomorrow, the Ojulari-led NNPCL may change his mind. So until we see what exactly they want to do. But it's important to remove government's hand from the business. Government has failed us in the oil and gas business, just as it has failed the Nigerian people in the electricity business since 1960. So if they are going to get equity partners, let the private sector investors, let them have the controlling share, maybe 51%. Let it not be the federal government of Nigeria having the controlling share, because those refineries will still be run as a government business. And in any case, the technology is obsolete in those 3 refineries. They should go and study the models. Petrobras in Brazil, Aramco in Saudi Arabia. What is the international best practice? It shouldn't be so difficult for the Nigerian government to run a refinery. That's that about that. As for ASU, well, it's good that at last the federal government has intervened. There is the Yayale Ahmed Negotiation Committee, and that committee, government is saying, look, ASU should not go on strike. You know, the negotiations will continue. They have something they call Needs Assessment Initiative. On the basis of the needs assessment, they have now decided to pay batch 8 of the salaries and pension arrears, which the lecturers were complaining about. Yes, the Tinubu administration came in and paid, 8 months salary, but there are still outstanding, payments to be made. I think it's a demonstration of good faith, both on the part of the minister and also of the federal government. But it's now up to ASU to appreciate what the Tinubu government has done. But in any case, this kind of situation in which we have found ourselves should not even have happened in the first place. Medical doctors were the ones we were talking about the other day, resident doctors. Now it is university teachers. If you go down the line, polytechnic teachers, secondary school teachers, education and health should be taken seriously. If this country that is attending the first future initiative conference in Riyadh is going to look at other countries demonstrating robotics, NVIDIA making money, talking about artificial intelligence. If you don't have a strong education sector, you cannot have the workforce of the future that can compete and promote and position Nigeria effectively. As for the pardon list, very quickly, 175 names on the original list. I even queried that. I said, why 175? Some, sophomore kind of attitude, some funny behavior. So because it's section 175, you must also have 175 people on the list of pardon.
You don't have empirical facts.
Well, section 175 is where the presidency derives its power from.
Yes.
So why did they first pardon 175?
No, you don't have
No, it's a very simplistic,
you don't have proof.
sophomoric way of reasoning.
Creative.
However, they've now reduced that to 120. They now say 15 will be pardoned, 15 will get clemency, the remaining number will get commutal of sentence. I think 86, right? 86 getting commutal of sentence. So in all, you now have about 120 on that particular list. Now, it is medicine after death. This is what they should have done originally, due diligence. The president went to the Council of State. He got the support of the Council of State, even if the Council of State is an advisory body. Then the Attorney General of the Federation tried to do damage control and said, look, before we gazette this, on the basis of public outcry and public reaction, we will take another look and we will do the needful. No, it's messing after that, because if there had been due diligence, this is what they should have done previously. Now they have removed all the drug-related offenders, the fraudsters, who should not have been on the list in the first place. So this is a price you pay. It's not just about responding to public outcry. In the future, I think there must be a way of involving civil society in assessing the list before it is even taken to the Council of State, before it is even made public. Now they say the Secretariat for the Prerogative of Mercy has been moved from the Ministry of Special Duties to the Federal Ministry of Justice. But the Attorney General of the Federation was the chairman of that committee on the Prerogative of Mercy. So it's not just about moving the Secretariat. Everyone on that Secretariat who produced this list that annoyed Nigerians should be sacked. And that committee of the Prerogative of Mercy should be reconstituted forthwith. And then, where sanctions must apply, those persons who embarrass the president, because this is clearly an embarrassment. And that's why the opposition parties are saying this is shameful, this is shocking. So they've given them the opportunity to criticize the federal government. So this sloppiness is not something that can be excused. So the minimum is not about moving to the Ministry of Justice. The Minister of Justice himself and Attorney General was the chairman of the committee. So as the chief law officer of the Federation, why didn't he see the loopholes? He had to wait for people to carry placards. Even Dijade Yonju, who had praised the federal government for revising the list, said because Miriam Sanders' name is still on the commutal of sentence, he has withdrawn his commendation for the federal government. They cannot, afford this kind of sloppiness. You give a national award, names of dead people are there. People who have been given awards before, they are given another award again. No, they just speak stories.
Competence.
I don't want to use that word. You see that I was hesitating.
No,
I'm not saying. I said sloppiness. I don't want to say incompetence.
Dr. Bati, they will be sacked is incompetence.
Incompetence.
Okay.
Use it. Incompetence.
S must roll. Now, the Abat Macaulay family even came forward and said, okay, whatever happened with the nationalist Abat Macaulay was during the colonial era. It wasn't under the Nigerian government. It was before 1960. Now, what powers? From where does the Nigerian government derive its powers to say they are pardoning Abat Macaulay? The family says, no, our father is not a common offender or criminal. He was a nationalist. If anything, he deserves to be given national honor. But in the reconsideration, the federal government did not look at that. I think it's something they can revisit. They can correct one mistake and then correct another mistake, since it seems to be a recurring pattern.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bata. I'll start from that, but before I go to the pardon, you didn't finish your analysis on the this day one because you did not mention implications following the congratulatory message to this day newspaper on that, on that recognition. Absolutely. So let me add to that. In Dr. Bati's words, there shall be and must be implications, but a job well done and well-deserved recognition for This Day Group, This Day newspaper, and like I mentioned earlier on, the editor-in-chief. Now, let's talk about the news that a number of people have been talking about, and this morning, of course, opinions are divided. So let me look at it from both sides of the opinion, divide. One is that, it's a good move. It shows that the president is a listening president. We've seen in recent times whereby decisions have been made. It wasn't yet final, according to what the Attorney General of the Federation had said. And following public outcry, in his fashion on style, he decided to go back and look at that list and did the needful. So on that hand, some people have argued that we should actually praise the president for this move. On the other hand, the other divide would say that actually, in the words of Frank Shaibu, who was speaking on behalf of his principal, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who is in the opposition, that who thought it was a brilliant idea to reward crime and betray justice? Who signed off on such national embarrassment? This is what he asked. And he said a number of Nigerians would be asking this question as well. And I'm sure a number of people watching are also asking, like even Dr. Bati, you asked this morning, that the people that caused this national embarrassment ought to face full consequence for that. But let me even mention some of the primary players, at least based on what has been said beyond the committee. This pardon was under the Special Duties Ministry. The Minister of Special Duties currently is Honorable Zephaniah Gisalo. A number of people might not even know that name because he's remained largely silent in the background. We haven't heard much from him. But under his ministry, this kind of abnormality, absurdity, embarrassment, disgrace, whatever name you want to call it, happened in this administration. I believe that he has a case to answer. And perhaps the coordinating the Special Advisor on Coordination or a policy coordination should look into this in rating the ministers. And I believe that it's high time the president also looked at his inner, they call them the kitchen cabinets, because there have been a number of directions that have been reversed, advice that was given that was said to be faulty based on public outcry afterwards. It's high time because it then gives speculations or causes speculation for the kind of people that have the ears of the president or the kind of team that the president has. Recall that before, during his campaign, he had talked about the strength of his ability to identify talent and put talent in the right position. Therefore, he was going to harness that opportunity and really do good work for Nigeria. This hasn't happened. Another thing would also be even to x-ray again the role of the Council of State. I say this because 3 weeks ago when the announcement was made, it was following a meeting of the Council of State where the governor of Kaduna State, Uba Sani, had spoken on their behalf and said that this pardon list, and he had said was in the interest of justice and fairness, and also perhaps to decongest the Nigerian Correctional Service. Maybe we need to rethink their role, because does it mean that there are speculations around decisions that are okayed by the Council of State? Yes, they don't have executive powers, but they have an advisory power. So either one or two things happened. There was advice given to the president that he didn't listen to because he has the ultimate final say, or they all, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, and then this kind of national embarrassment happened. For those who might want to know the composition of the Council of State, it's the president who chairs, the vice president, all former presidents and heads of government. It's important to note that at that particular meeting, former President Obasanjo, Jonathan, and Gowon were not present at that meeting. All former Chief Justices of Nigeria, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, all governors of the state, the Attorney General of the Federation they make up the Council of State. And even though, like I said earlier on, they don't have executive power, they okayed the decision. Did they look through the list? Were they aware of what the list was about? Or is the Council of State just a rubber stamp for anything the president says, we okay it? I say it because they've also okayed the service chiefs. They are also going to be the ones to okay the National Honours List. Should we be wary of the decisions that the Council of State okays? I think that's another thing to watch out for, because the president cannot act unilaterally. He cannot act by himself. He should have a team of advisors who are qualified in that regard and whom he can trust to give him good advice to know, so that we are able to avoid embarrassments like this. Now, moving on to other stories. ASU, I think this is an important story. I say this because when ASU called off its strike, they said they did it in good faith because the government showed good faith, and they trusted that, unlike previous negotiations, this government was serious about their demands. And just a few weeks later, we see that in true fashion and truth to their word, the government has acted in good faith. In previous administrations, they have gone to the negotiation table with almost nothing to show for it. It is important to mention that these arrears were inherited from previous administrations, and the Tinubu administration has done well to pay some of these backlogs, and this speaks well for, other sectors that have been termed to be critical, including the resident doctors. And I make bold again, based on this trend, to speak up for them and say that the Tinubu administration has done well with the police force, with the pensions, now with ASU. Can they also ensure that that doctors and the medical, a health sector in Nigeria is given good and close attention to, so that the resident doctors do not embark on the strike they have threatened to do from the 1st of November. ASU has at least been paid attention to. They said they'll continue to pay the other backlogs with pensions and others. So it's great to see that, again, like I said earlier on, it's a listening administration, even though sometimes you might criticize some of the moves they make that means that they have to go back again and reverse their decisions. Then moving on to that screening of the service chiefs, I'll end on this note. I think it's very important and instructive, that statement around the cost. It wasn't just the Air Vice Marshal that said, the Chief of Air Staff that said it. The other service chiefs had identified funding as a key challenge to executing their work. And I hope that this will not then become an excuse later on when we ask them that, okay, why have they not done enough work in fighting terrorism and the likes? That we say, oh, we said that we do not have funding. Because the question that the executive and legislature need to answer is, where will the money come from? You heard that a missile costs $100,000, and they have to shoot daily. Where will the money come from? Where will the shortfall come from? I believe that is a question that's open-ended, and we need a response, because they keep saying there's no money, there's revenue shortage, but hopefully with the new revenues realized, we're able to meet this demand. Security currently has the second largest budget allocation in terms of line items. Debt servicing, security, education, health are the priority areas according to the 2025 budget. So I feel that, this is quite important to look into and not just see that as an excuse for them not to actually do what they have been, appointed to do.